Hey everyone, here's a little update of what's going on. Cleaned the spark plugs, put pretty much 2 cans of the B12 Chem tool through the factory and fuel injectors, not the RX-8 ones. Installed the Buick fuel pump, cleaned the whole fuel system, and now it's running and idling perfect. 1000 RPM idle, 60 PSI of oil at 1000 RPM. Voltage is good, the car's starting to warm up. That's the hot side, so the actual hottest point of the engine is this gauge, and then I have this gauge right here set up for the actual cold water that's coming back in that's been cooled from the radiator will actually be going on this gauge. So this one usually stays about 160 to 190, maybe 200 tops if I'm punching it in the summertime with the AC on, and then this one ranges anywhere from 160 to about 170. It never goes higher than whatever this one is. If this one goes higher than this gauge, then there's a coolant leak somewhere. But she's been running pretty good. Sounds good. I barely got to give it any gas and it redlines. That was probably quarter throttle. It has enough heat in it that you can redline it. You just don't want it to be completely cold when you start redlining it. If you have some heat, 120, 140 degrees, you can redline it. Just make sure you're not under load. You can do free rev. Ow! Here's what the engine bay looks like for now. As you can see, everything's running good. I wind up cleaning out these fuel injectors and putting them back in. These are out of a 90 RX-7 convertible S5, which they're the same CC as the S4. It's just high impedance and low impedance is the only difference. Fuel gauge ain't jumping around. I found out my fuel gauge when you actually disconnect it and let all the pressure drop, it says it has 4 PSI when it's at 0, so that's why I have it adjusted a little bit higher. But other than that, she's doing pretty good. Give it a bath so it's actually kind of clean. Doesn't look all dirty. The shiny rims. Only thing I wash on this car until I get a paint job. Rims, windows, and lights, and mirrors. Once it gets a paint job, then I'll paint everything else and actually wash everything. But until then, that's the only thing that gets painted and washed. It's been running pretty good. I got a fuel pump coming in from AutoZone with a lifetime warranty on it. That's for an FD, so it flows a little bit more fuel, less pressure than the OEM one. On the RX-7, S4, and S5 Turbo and NA, they all run the same fuel pump, which is 125 PSI and 26 gallons per minute, where the FD has a little bit bigger pump that runs 118 PSI, but it runs at 68 gallons per minute. So it's twice the amount of volume, almost 3 times. So that's the one I'm going to be going with. The reason why this is doing this, the jumping up and down, is because I have my throttle cable tightened up to where that's what's actually holding the idle, and my TPS sensor is not set properly to where the throttle is set at. So if I give it gas, sometimes it goes back to 1,000, sometimes it'll hit up to like 1,500, like right there, and then it'll do that. When your car is doing that, usually your TPS sensor is not adjusted for your idle, or you got a vacuum leak. Mine's a mixture of the TPS sensor, and my only vacuum leak I know for sure I have is from my brake booster. See, because that's me hitting the brakes. Brake booster leak. That was red line. That's quarter throttle. That's full throttle. Getting some heat in the system. Hot side is about 175, 176. Returns just over 150. Still about 50 psi at 1400 RPM. And the reason why the idle jumped up is because my TPS sensor, my throttle cable is not adjusted properly. I have no cold start unit in the car, so when I start it up, I'm the actual cold start unit, so I have to apply my foot on the gas until it actually warms up to operating temperature, or at least can run on its own, because all the cold starting can be that's deleted. Oh, that's been deleted. Oh, that's been deleted. All of that crap's been deleted and capped. Same thing with all that. This engine's literally running off of the base. 56 actuators are completely removed out of the engine, out of the intake manifold, boarded and capped. This engine literally has everything deleted off of it, and the only thing that it has on it is what the ECU needs to run the engine. Everything emissions controlled, cold start, all the other bullshit that is not needed for the engine that eventually gives you a problem over time is removed. Harness has been simplified. It's literally running what the car needs to run. All that other bullshit is missing and deleted, and it actually runs better without it. You just got to figure out, once you remove all of it, how you're going to get the car to run. Because once you remove the cold start and all that shit and the idle air control valve, it usually doesn't want to idle, so you actually got to tighten your throttle cable to start applying gas to it to actually make it idle. And then once you start doing that, then you got to figure out where your idle needs to be set at with your throttle pedal adjustment. And then you need to adjust your TPS sensor to that. And you almost need to go back and forth between the two about 2 or 3 times to get them actually perfect. That's what it's running at right now. It likes to backfire. Really want to know if your engine's running real good, redline it to about 8,000 RPM and see that thing hit 8,000 RPM, let off the gas and let it go back to idle. If it goes back to idle and it's good, then you got a good running engine and good running electrical and fuel system. Well, a little update of what's going on. And one thing you always got to do for these cars, you kind of want to rev it up before you shut it off, and after you rev it up, wait 30 seconds to a minute so it kind of cools down that heat that it just built up. Hold it about 3,500 to 4 grand, somewhere inside there. Kill the car and hit pedal to the floor. And the reason why you want to do that, because say if you have a messed up fuel injector or you have something messed up with your fuel system, that will clear out the fuel. So when you go to start it again, it's not going to flood out. But it's running good for now. I'm just waiting for the new fuel pump to show up, and then when it shows up, I'm going to clean out the fuel injectors one last time, clean out the fuel filter one last time, inspect the tank, make sure there's no crap floating around, and it should be good. And then on my timing, When I originally got this engine, you can kind of see the yellow marks. They had the timing advanced to, or not advanced, retarded to 0 degrees top dead center, which rotary engines, you don't really do that to unless you have a programmable ECU, where the person that had this engine must have had one, because you can see the marks where he had it. It was actually at 0, to where right now it's a few degrees. It's about 4 to 5 degrees after top dead center, almost where factory is. And if I push it all the way over to where it's pretty much over here, then it'll be advancing the timing, and fully advanced it'll be at 7 to 8 degrees. I tried running the car on that and it didn't really like it, but at the time I was trying that, I also had the messed up fuel injectors, fuel pump, fuel filter, like my whole fuel system was trash. So now that I get my fuel system good, I'm going to go back through and retry that again and see if I get any results out of it. It's kind of what's going on. Don't forget to like and subscribe.